The use of fire in religion is not unique to Hinduism. It is common to many religions in the form of candles, lamps, and fire pits for ceremonies. My guru explained that fire can be seen by the beings in the inner worlds. He also stated that fire and prayer simultaneously bring forth the inner world. I like to call yajna the original temple. In fact, it is a portable temple as well, as it can be performed anywhere. Certainly one of the important uses today is in establishing a new stone temple through the ceremony of Kumbhabhishekam. Divine energy is first invoked through the fire. This energy is then stored in the water in the kumbhas adjacent to the homa pit. And after days of this process, there is enough divine energy in the water to infuse divinity into the stone form of the deity. I recently attended a Kumbhabhishekam in Fort Worth, Texas. One of the priests there, Dr. Udaya Bhaskar Dikshit Parasaram of the Redmond, Washington Temple, who was also a scholar, gave an excellent explanation of this process. He began by explaining that Hindus do not worship idols. The stone form of the deity can be called an idol or a statue before the sacred water is poured over it in the Prana Pratishta ceremony. But after that takes place, it is transformed into a sacred murti. Gurudeva commented on murti worship. We worship God Shiva and the gods who by their infinite powers spiritually hover over and indwell the image or murti, which we refer to as their temporary body. We commune with them through the ritual act of puja. A verse from the Saivite Agama Ajita states, Shiva Lingam Puja is for the purpose of invoking the presence of Sadashiva in the Lingam. So that's very good on our timing schedule, because we have a lot of wonderful questions. Got through the major points, had to skip some of the minor ones, but it's in the workbook. Children as well as adults catch the idea that temple worship is a great tool for stabilizing their emotions when they get upset. The reluctance to join the family will change. The temple will become an important point to them, not just to mom and dad. Temple worship will help them remain calm and centered, even in difficult circumstances. They will find that going in the right spirit is a way of pulling themselves back together. It is also a place for assuaging long-held hurts. Teach children to go to the temple and place their problems at the feet of the deity, to bring offerings and talk to the deity about their unhappiness, just as if they were willing to talk, just as if they were talking to a friend in this physical world. There with the deity, they will go through a deep inner process and receive blessings from the deity if they open themselves in the right way. They may find that when they leave the temple, they can't even remember what the problem was. That's a sign of success. Of course, the benefits of attending a temple every week are not limited to times that they are emotionally upset. Even when everything is going well in their life, worshiping at the temple with sincerity and attentiveness takes them deeper into their soul nature. They will be more compassionate and understanding, better able to deal with the challenges that come to them in life. Once your child realizes that worship is a powerful Hindu tool and not just another adult rule, she will ask you to take her to the temple frequently. Attending pujas at a temple purifies the mind through the exchange of prana, an aspect of puja and homa that is not often discussed. Oh, this is important. Puja is a process of giving prana to the deity through offerings of fruit, cooked foods, water, incense, fragrant flowers, and milk. Then during the culminating arati, the deity and his helpers or devas reflect back this prana into the aura of each devotee, purifying it of subconscious congestions. The devotee so blessed leaves feeling uplifted and relieved of mental burdens. After an elaborate homa performed in our Hawaii temple by his three priests, Sharyendra Puri Mahaswamiji of Kailas Ashram in Bengaluru, India, explained that Agni, the messenger god of fire, conveys the offerings in a purified form to the deity, who then uses the prana to bless those present. We can compare this mystical energy exchange to making a phone call. The process of giving is akin to calling God, and then during the final arti, God picks up the call and floods his love towards you. The effect of such blessings can be life-altering, as Gurudeva observed. Darshan coming from the great temples of our gods can change the patterns of karma dating back many past lives, clearing and clarifying conditions that were created hundreds of years ago and are but seeds now waiting to manifest in the future. Through the grace of the gods, those seeds can be removed if the manifestation in the future would not enhance the evolution of the soul. We have arranged group pilgrimages to India and Sri Lanka since 1969, and some pilgrims on various programs had life-changing visions of Lord Vinayaka as well as other deities. Such visions, born of the intensity of pilgrimage and inner striving, would often come in the form of the stone or bronze murti moving and smiling at them, or turning into an animated human-like figure. Some devotees with their eyes closed inwardly saw the deity's face as real as any living being. Though occasionally a devotee may have a vision of the deity, the more common way we experience him is as peaceful, uplifting divine energy or Shakti that radiates out from the image. The blessings of the deity are called Sanidhya and refer to the radiance and blessed presence of Shakti in and around a temple. In some of Gurudeva's writings, he also refers to these blessings as the darshan of the deity. Here is an analogy with experiencing the sun. If we go outside on a sunny day and close our eyes, that was today when we came in, we can feel the sun's rays on our skin without seeing the sun in the sky. And in that way experience the sun. So we know the sun is there because we can feel it without having to look at it. This is similar to what happens in the temple. Our inner or spiritual eye, the third eye, is not open, so we don't see the deity. However, we can feel in our nervous system the spiritual energy that radiates out from the murti, and in that way experience the deity. Next is the story of a youth group. Over the last few years, I've had the privilege of attending Kumbhabhishekams for Shiva temples in Perth, Australia, Atlanta, Georgia, Venkateshwara Temple in Central Florida, Lord Murugan Temple, Montreal, Canada, PAPS Swaminarayan temples in Houston, Texas, Toronto, Canada, and Delhi, India, Bhairava Temple in Karnataka, India, and Lord Ganesh in Phoenix, Arizona. The special ceremonies conducted on these occasions by an especially large number of well-trained priests are always exceptionally uplifting times. On most of these occasions, there is some interaction with the youth of the temple. As a formal seminar, a lecture, or simply an informal question and answer session. During one of the breaks at one of the Kumbhabhishekams, I was chatting with some of the older youth who were sons and daughters of the trustees and other key members. They were challenging me with the question, since God is omnipresent, what is the need to build large temples to worship Him? The cost of construction is quite large, plus then you have the ongoing cost of monthly maintenance that has to be met. Couldn't all that money be spent in a better way? My answer went something like this. Since God is omnipresent, shouldn't we be able to experience Him equally everywhere? For example, God permeates this room. By looking intently at the room, shouldn't you be able to experience God? In theory, you should. I then asked those present to look around. How many can see God permeating this room? All the youth had to admit that they couldn't see God permeating the room. I then continued, practically speaking, God's omnipresence is a very subtle form of consciousness, too subtle for most of us to experience unless we are quite skilled in meditation. I then gave an analogy with other subjects, with other objects that are difficult to see. If we want to see a distant galaxy, we can go to an observatory and use a powerful telescope. To see into the nucleus of a cell, we can go to a laboratory and use an electron microscope. Similarly, to see God, there is a powerful tool we can use to enable us to be successful. We can go to the temple and through the sanctified murti experience God. Temples, especially the murtis within them, have this ability because they are a especially sacred place for three reasons: construction, consecration, and continuous daily worship. Hereditary temple architects known as Stapadis are commissioned to design and construct the temple. By tradition, every stone is set in place according to the sacred architecture found in the Agamic scriptures. Consecration occurs through the powerful ceremony of Kumbhabhishekam, which involves a large number of priests performing elaborate ceremonies for days on end. Then begins the schedule of daily pujas that are held thereafter, conducted by professional priests. The daily pujas sustain and gradually increase the sanctity set in motion at the Kumbhabhishekam. In these three ways, the temple and the murtis within them are sanctified. Next, we'll talk about fire and prana pratishta. Important one, I didn't want to skip. Sacred temple. Many Hindus strive to attend the temple once a week. Children often accompany their parents up until their teens when they begin to ask, why must we go to the temple every week, right? Sure you've experienced that, those of you who have teenage children. Why must we go to the temple every week? You can explain to Hindu children that worshipping in the temple is one of the traditional ways Hinduism gives us for connecting with our soul nature and experiencing ananda, the natural bliss of the soul. A devotee can visit the temple in a state of discontent, receive the blessings of God and the gods, and go away uplifted and happy. How is this possible? The deity's blessings have cleared their mind and aura of congested thought forms and emotion, allowing them to reconnect with their inner self. The blessings lift them out of their instinctive nature and soften their intellectual nature, bringing them into their spiritual nature. Thank you for these wonderful questions. Because then I'm talking about what you're interested in. At least one of you, not what I'm interested in. How do you bring more happiness and joy through our life journey and life lessons? Well, there's a couple of keys. One is to make sure we're not falling into the ordinary way of thinking that happiness comes from the outside. The ordinary way of thinking, and this is, in the USA we have a whole street dedicated to it. It's called Madison Avenue. It's the advertising firms of the world. They try and convince you if you get a new car, you'll be a happier person. If you do this, you'll be more successful. If you eat this, you'll be a lot healthier. So most of it isn't true, of course. They're just trying to motivate you to get the product. But it's the common idea that happiness comes from what we possess. It doesn't. Happiness goes up when we buy something and it goes down. The one that lasts the longest is a new house. That's 1 or 2 years. And eventually it's too small. We need a bigger one. So it wears off. Doesn't come from people. Sometimes young couples get married thinking, I'm a miserable person. If I get married, I'll become a happy person. It doesn't work that way. We have to bring happiness to the marriage. Be a happy person that gives happiness to the marriage, not that's relying on the other spouse to make us happy. So if we don't have in mind that happiness comes from possessions or people, that's a starter. Well, where does it come from? Well, it has to come from within ourselves. It doesn't have to be religion, but we have to do something that uplifts us, puts us in our higher or creative nature. It could be religious practices, could be music. Some people just love to create music and uplifts them, puts them into a different realm. They write poetry or something. But we need the ability to uplift ourselves or go within to a higher consciousness, and that's where the happiness comes from. And we do that through repeating statements, such as I'm all right now, or I'm a spiritual being. I don't have time to go into affirmations at depth, but it's in our Guru's writings. He has a whole chapter on it called The Power of Affirmation. All our writings are on our website for free if you're interested. Power of Affirmation can help us be a happier, more successful person by putting positive thoughts into our subconscious. How do you find your way to Satchidananda in this materialistic world full of temptations, competition? Well, you only find your way if you're ready to find your way. If you're interested in materialism and competition, then enjoy materialism and competition. Saivism doesn't say everybody should be a spiritual person at this point in time. Lots of people would rather stay home, men, drink beer and watch soccer, right? It's more enjoyable than coming to the temple. Well, that's fine. We don't care. They're not ready for Satchidananda. Satchidananda, it's like taking up training for something. So you want to play the Veena, or you want to learn Carnatic singing. You have to have a strong desire, because you have to have a teacher, you have to practice, and so forth. So it requires a strong desire, a yearning, a ripeness of the soul for something like Satchidananda, and then you need a good teacher. Namah Shivaya and Shivaya Nama, is both chanting correct? Yes. Shivaya Nama is more an inner chanting, Namah Shivaya is more an outer chanting. And there's a whole write-up on that in our writings. But they're both correct. How can parents raise Hindu children in the West? Well, this is the most important question we can ask, because the big challenge is the younger generation, trying to have them interested in Hinduism at all isn't that easy. And it requires presenting it in a way that shows the benefits. It requires presenting it in a way where the questions are adequately answered. We can't just say that's the way we've always done it. Why do we go around this murti 3 times and not once? That's the way we've always done it. No, that won't work. They hear that enough, stop coming. The answers are there. Our 10 questions or reincarnation into 14 questions has a lot of them. But they need quality answers from someone. If the parents don't have the answers, they can go find the answers. They can try and get their kids in a class where the answers are given. But we need quality answers, and we need to show benefits. What's the benefit of going to the temple? Makes you more peaceful. Helps you solve your problems. Uplifts you. Makes you more creative. Yoga means union. Do you think that fundamentally yoga leads to moksha? Yes, well, yoga means union. The word yoga needs another adjective these days because its meaning has gotten so broad. Over time, it started originally, yoga means control of the mind and senses. Then it got broader and broader and broader and broader. So you have to stick a word in front of it: Hatha yoga, Raja yoga, Yana yoga, to qualify what kind of yoga you're talking about. So in Saivism, Raja Yoga or Kundalini Yoga leads to moksha, yes. So it's the meditation, the 8 steps: Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. Those 8 steps, if practiced correctly, eventually lead to moksha. But moksha is not guaranteed for this life. That's why we talked about the journey toward moksha. So it's better to say that practice helps you move forward in your journey toward moksha, which is a multi-lifetime journey. What does vairagya essentially mean? It means detachment. And vairagya can also be a title of a sannyasa. You could call him a vairagyi with an I on the end. So that's something for monks, basically, detachment. The better focus for grahastas is fulfillment of duty. We want to focus on fulfilling our duty. We don't want to focus on detachment. You want to earn a lot of money and give some to the temple. That's fulfillment of duty. Vairagya means you don't care about money. So vairagya is not for grahastas. It's for sannyasins. How should we face our karma? Well, the first key, and 6 minutes left, is to acknowledge that it's our karma. He did that to me. It's all his fault. Guess what? You're not acknowledging that it's your karma. Everything that happens to you is created by you. There's no other person creating it except you. That's the Hindu point of view. You have a big magnet within you that attracts everything to you. People, events. That's called karma. That's called samskara. Everything that happens to you is created by you. So you have to realize that you're the creator of this. If this person didn't do it to you, another person would have to show up and do it to you. Because it's your karma. There's a lesson to be learned. The second one is, what's the lesson? If this happened to me, what crazy thing did I do in the past to create it? Try and learn the lesson, and that's how we don't repeat the karma. How does the process of rebirth work? Do we reincarnate into a physical body or as an animal? Physical body. How can we invoke Lord Ganesha in today's world? Well, to get close to any deity, you need to do so through a temple. So worshiping Lord Ganesha in the temple every week would get you closer to Ganesha. And it's good to try and get close to one deity at a time, not 6 of them. It's called Ishtadevata. If you want to focus on Ganesha, Ganesha is the deity that gets the most attention. When you come to the temple, the others get less. What is the purpose of life? Well, that is the question, yes. What is the purpose of life? So Hinduism says the purpose of life is to achieve moksha. But in doing so, we're maturing spiritually. It's just not a question of getting out. How do I get out of this world and not come back? So that's kind of just looking at one side. The purpose of life is, we're the seed of the lotus flower. That's how we start. We got to grow the stem. We got to produce the bud. We have to let the bud blossom and see the sun. So that's the purpose of life, is spiritual growth. Moksha is just the final result. So it's better to say spiritual growth is the focus, which eventually leads to moksha. Can householders learn and chant Shree Rudram? If they could find someone to teach it to them. I would never recommend learning Shree Rudram by yourself. It's a powerful chant that can disturb the home. Does God answer our prayers? Well, if we're praying sincerely, prayer influences our life. It doesn't necessarily get answered in the way we want it. It's like a 12-year-old asking for a birthday present, They may not conceive it well as to what they should get or how much it costs, but the prayer will be heard. Purpose of creation and destruction is no different than the purpose of life. These last ones all are kind of the same question, so I'll read them all and try and answer them all. How do Hindus resolve disputes within the family? How do we not react to negative experiences? How do we face adversity? How do we not react negatively to issues? Oh, that's a different one. Oh, kind of the same thing, right? What I find is helpful in facing adversity is to not call it adversity or not call it a problem. I've got this big problem. As soon as we say that, what happens? We start procrastinating and handling it because we've labeled it a big problem. We've made it harder to handle by calling it adversity or a big problem. Therefore, it's better to call it the next thing to do. This is the next thing I have to do. Some next things to do are easy, some are moderately hard, some are difficult, but it's the next thing to do in my path forward. So just calling it that is helpful. And then realizing that you can draw on your willpower and strength, you can draw on your family's strength, you can draw on the temple, and that can give you the inner strength to face it. And reacting negatively to issues is that we need to learn from it. Reacting negatively is reaction. If we react, if we get emotional, we turn off our intelligence. We need to not react, or react for 5 minutes instead of 5 hours. Try not to react. If we realize what reacting is, it's turning off our intelligence, our ability to effectively handle something, then we're less inclined to do it. Resolving disputes within the family, compromise. We need to be willing to compromise, particularly husband and wife. One being a man, one being a woman. Guess what? Two very different points of view. Okay, we'll do it your way this time, but next time we get to do it my way. We have to be willing to compromise, and we have to have a professional code of conduct in the home. What's that mean? We know we have to be professional at work or we could lose our job, right? We act up to a certain standard, but sometimes people come home and they feel it's a place they can let off steam. they had a bad day, they kind of take it out on their spouse or the kids. You know, they don't uphold a professional standard at home. But a home is not a place to let off stress. That's why we have gymnasiums. That's why we have beautiful parks. You know, we can let off stress before we get home. We can even let off stress at the temple. We don't want to come home all stressed. We want to try and get rid of stress before we come home and uphold a professional standard of behavior and be willing to compromise. And thank you very much, and it's 12 o'clock. We have a gift of books for the temple. These are a set of Gurudeva's writings, Dancing with Shiva, Living with Shiva, and Merging with Shiva. You can tell what the subject is. Loving Ganesha, and then we have the Tirukkural. It's called Weaver's Wisdom, because Tirukkural is a word that English-speaking people cannot get through. And Tiruvalavar was a weaver. That's what his profession was. This is how I get my exercise, picking up our set of trilogy. Get heavy. Yes, so I guess Vibhuti, huh? Is that the idea? If anyone wants to come forward for some Vibhuti, we will move the electronics out of the way.
We can answer many questions people had in their minds. Even if they didn't write them on the leaves themselves, I think a lot of questions were answered today. The whole program has been recorded by Uncle Ananda Kumar from London Hindu Temple, so he'll be posting it on his blog, and we will be doing the same on our temple website as well. So if there's things that you can't remember, you will be able to see the whole thing edited on there as well. May I say, after Satguru has given the blessings, we'll be serving lunch straight after the 12 o'clock puja. So at 12:25, please join us for a rice and curry meal with papadums as well, and salad. So do stay and join that. And then there are some Hinduism Today books, which Satguru has very kindly offered to give free of charge to anybody who would like to take them. There is also a subscription which you can do, we do, where we get the subscription posted at home every 3 months. And we also have copies here at the temple for sale of the latest editions in later days. Thank you so much. Words cannot we cannot put into words what this has meant to us. Last time, 12 years ago, when you did the Hindu Youth Conference, there was less children here, but two of the main ones were Dr. Rame and Dr. Vatsalan, who I think was the first time they had met you. And from then, they have come to do a Ghanapathy at Christmas time with us, and also have been instrumental in organising the conference. We did a lot of the work through WhatsApp, which has been a good use of modern technology, well into the night, but it's been inspiring, and it's created many opportunities for people to serve, which has been a wonderful thing to do. So on behalf of everybody, we'd like to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
கணபதியை அருகம்புலில் பூஜித்தே குளிர்ந்தாய கணநாத குழந்தை ஈசா குழக்கட்டை கேட்டு நீ வந்தாயுலா என்னாவில் நீ ஆடலாய் தும்பி கையாண்டவனே என் இஷ்ட கணபதியை அருகம்புலில் பூஜித்தேன் குளிர்ந்தாய கணநாத குழந்தை ஈசா குழக்கட்டை கேட்டு நீ வந்தாயுலா என்னாவில் நீ